Hi everyone and welcome to a new episode of Crushing On Podcast. Sorry if my voice sounds a bit scratchy, I do have the flu, but also with me here today with the flu is returning guests Stephen Nagel and Dean Ravell. Say hello guys.
Hey
everyone.
Hi everyone. Hi Karen.
What's up?
How are you doing?
Thanks for having us back.
Yeah, thank you for coming back. So today on the show, we are going to have a little roundtable about the film Beau Is Afraid. So for those of you who have not heard or seen Beau Is Afraid, you're going to have to watch it before listening to this episode. So this is your warning. This is not a spoiler-free episode. There's going to be spoilers galore. Beau Is Afraid is from the director Ari Aster, who did Hereditary and Midsummer. And it follows this guy named Beau. And that's all I'm going to say. So I actually want to ask you guys, if somebody had to ask you, how would you describe Beau Is Afraid, what would you say?
So I've been thinking about this and it was my immediate reaction. It's 3 hours of mommy issues. That is how the shortest way I can describe it.
Yeah.
3 hours of mommy
It's
issues.
just a fever dream of anxiety, basically. It's just nonstop, like, what is going on? But, like, it's still interesting, but it's still, like, there's so much coming at you all the time. It's just, like, complete fever dream, yeah.
So what was your experience in the cinema watching it with other moviegoers? Like, what was that experience like?
So we actually went to an advanced screening of this. And so it wasn't like super full. And I think a lot of the people there were there to review it, possibly. So I'm guessing the audience was kind of just, there for like a certain objective. But I found myself like laughing a lot. It's Ari Aster's funniest movie, I think. And also just laughing because of how shocking certain things are, like that just happen like almost every like few seconds or few minutes in the film. Um, I think I was probably laughing the most in the cinema because I've got a crazy sense of humor. But there were some like what the fuck moments from people around me. Just like people reacting like and shaking their heads or like just looking around in bewilderment, you know? Um, so yeah, that's how it was for me, from what I could observe, because we were sitting right at the back. So yeah.
Yeah, we saw a few people that are also like journalists and like movie reviewers and stuff that we know from like socials, and a lot of people I think are like cinephiles, so they could appreciate, like they're used to sitting 3 hours watching some kind of like obscure movie. But yeah, the reactions that we could get from people, like even myself, like there were moments where I was literally like, "What the? I can't even, can we swear?
Yes,
We
you
can
can
swear,
swear.
right?" I was like, what the fuck is going on? I literally looked at Nagel, who was like next to me, and I was like, is that a thing? Like, there's one specific moment, and I know we can do spoilers, but like, it happens towards the end of the film, right? Where where they go to his mom's. Obviously, without context, some of this won't make sense, but obviously, people who are listening to this, I'm assuming, have seen the movie. When he goes to his mom's funeral, and they have like an open casket, but she has no head. And I looked at Nagel, and I was like, "Why would they do
Why
that?"
would
She's
that
literally
open
like,
casket?
she was like wearing a nice suit, and it was like, no head, but it's
Yeah.
an open casket. I couldn't believe the audacity, but I was like, it has full of those kind of moments where it was like really weird, but yeah, super funny. Like I had reservations about going to watch it just because I'm not the most avid Ari Aster fan as opposed to Nagel. Like I saw Midsummer for the first time a few months ago. So, because I just heard about his reputation for being having like really like intense sort of graphic films, and then when I saw some of the like reviews and stuff for this one ahead of time, and I was like, this is like crazy. I'm not sure if I want to watch this. And then he was like, yeah, we should go. So then we did, and I was like bracing myself for this, and I was like, it was way funnier than I thought it was gonna be. That's the first thing I think I told Nagel was like, it's a lot funnier. I thought it was gonna be more like traumatic and like chilling or whatever, but it was super hilarious actually for most of the film, as much as it was fucked up as well.
It took me so long to laugh because I was like, I was like, am I supposed to be laughing? Like, I was very aware of like what I
Yeah.
was watching. I was like, am I supposed to be laughing for this? But yeah, I when I went to watch it a bit afterwards, and it was only like probably 10, 15 people in the cinema, and I assume they were all there for, to see an Ari Aster film. But yeah, the amount of times I just saw people like, huh? Like, what is happening? And in there, I think at one point I was just like went like huh out loud, because I was like,
Yeah, like
I
what is
don't know
going on?
anymore. but
Yeah.
but the funniest part for me was like, as the film ended, like obviously the film ends on like a very dour note, but then the credits just start like rolling, and everybody's
Mm.
just
Yeah.
sitting there like they're watching a Marvel movie, like waiting for
For something to
for
happen,
Yeah.
you know.
something to
Yeah.
happen. And then everybody just like slowly got up and like walked out like quietly, like you're at a funeral or something. And I thought that was
Yes.
so funny. It was just like everybody was just like in their own heads, like walking out one by one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very
I feel like
unique experience.
Ari Aster's got that ability to kind of like reach through the screen and grab you and say, "Hey, I'm pulling you into this experience." So you feel that discomfort and that anxiety yourself. And it might be for different reasons, like you said, like it's almost like he's daring you to laugh at what he's showing you. You know, it's like it sits on like this knife's edge where it could be very funny or very tragic, and sometimes both. And
Mm,
then it's almost like he's daring you to like laugh at this, you know, and it's uncomfortable. And I think he thrives in discomfort. Ari Aster
mm.
as an artist, he thrives in that, you know, discomfort and horrible feeling in your gut, basically. So yeah.
So okay, let's ask the question then. What did you guys think of the film?
So I think the first thing we thought of, and we kind of agreed on, was that it was a bit too long. Like it just felt like it was going on for a moment. Like we thought like there's definitely a cut in there that is like at least a half an hour shorter. Um, and even though it was confusing at times, I really enjoyed the performances. Like Joaquin Phoenix, like is such a force. I'm a huge fan of his, and the blending of like his comedic and dramatic sort of talents, I thought that was fantastic. Yeah, I just felt like it was a bit like it was going on a while. Like it got to a point where I was like, this didn't need to be as long as what it is. You know what I mean? And sometimes as filmmakers, you can embellish a bit, and you can kind of like take liberties, especially with him. I think his track record was like he should be able to do this with his movie, but I felt like it was kind of almost slightly a disservice because it was like it would have had more impact, I felt, if it was a little bit shorter and punchier. But yeah, overall, I thought that was my big takeaway. It was a little bit too long, but I still enjoyed the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, as Dean said, we agreed on the point that it was too long. Like if you watch the short that this was initially based off of, like which came out in like 2011, I think, or something. It's called Beau, and that's like just a few minutes long, and it basically gives you exactly the same emotion in terms of the severe anxiety. But it's so punchy because it happens over like a very short space of time. Um, I thought the film was pretty well done, and I think everything had meaning. Um, but when it got to like the later, like you know, late second act and third act, it was definitely like hammering home the very same point, like really hard, and that didn't quite work for me. But I think overall, it was still worthwhile watching because that initial opening of just being pulled into someone else's anxiety and like walking in their shoes for like so long is it's like going on a roller coaster ride. So for me, that was pretty enjoyable, and yeah, that's what I'll take away from the viewing experience at the end of the day.
I I just want to say, like, when I watched it, I was not having a good time. I was like, I was like, what I was just so unhappy and I was just so uncomfortable all the time. And and at one point I was like, I literally just want to take my phone out and like Google what is going on in this film. Like
Yeah.
that's how I felt. But then I came home and then I just kept on thinking about it and I was like thinking
Yeah.
about like the terror he felt when he was like, oh, is his like what happened to his keys and
Yes.
are there people
Yeah.
gonna come into his house? Like I was like, I always have that fear. Like I'm always
Yes.
scared that I'm gonna
Yeah.
lock myself out by mistake, or that I'm gonna lose control over a situation. And like his relationship with the girl, I kept thinking about that. And like I was just like so many parts of it. Like also like I'm somebody who does therapy like quite often, and I'm like the fear that the people you talk about in therapy are going to hear what you talk about. Like it's
Yeah.
impossible,
Yo.
but like
Definitely.
that like insane fear. And I was like, it just he did it so well. Like he
Yeah.
put like sort of like a voice or like a visual to these fears that we're
Yes.
feeling so
Yeah.
well. Then I was like, you know, I see the point of it. But
Yes.
while I was in that moment, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? What is this movie? What is
Mm.
happening?
Yeah.
Over and over
Yeah.
again.
And I think Ari Aster's really good at that. Like he takes a single idea or a single feeling and he stretches it out over like an entire movie. And with Midsummer, it was like grief and acceptance. Um, and then Hereditary, it was kind of like I would say, generational trauma, and then also kind of like the impact that mother-daughter relationship had on the entire family as well. Um, and then here as well, I think it's a lot about anxiety and also once again generational trauma.
Mhm.
So, and the mother-son relationship specifically in this case. Um, and he just takes it out. He takes out a specific thing, and in this case, multiple things that are related to anxiety, and he just like turns everything up to 11. And it's so insane because like at the beginning when they're showing Beau like running to his apartment and getting in at the last second and all the
Mm.
crazy madness going on outside his apartment building, I was like, that can't really be happening, right? That's his view of the
Yeah.
world that we are inside now.
Yeah.
But like you can kind of make that leap and relate to it in terms of having an anxiety, maybe not about that specific thing, but you think about things that you are anxious about, and then you're like,
Mm.
okay, I kind of get it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I found that pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting, like just to piggyback off what Nagel was saying about like those kind of things that are happening outside in this world that's kind of like almost being created by his own anxiety, right? It's hyper exaggerated and like basically inflated to the point of like sure ridiculousness. But like he walks out of the therapist's office and there's a guy casually like looking at an
Mm.
AK-47, and it's just like these are just happening in the street outside his therapist's office. Like it's weird, and like him having to run to to his house to avoid getting attacked, I guess, by this other random guy. And it's like, and you can tell that that's a daily occurrence for
Mm.
him. Like, but how much of that is in his mind, and how much of that is just like completely like inflated basically because of his anxiety. I thought that was really interesting actually, and the way that it kind of this is like surrealism to it, where it's like
Mm,
people, yeah, there'll be shady people hanging out maybe down the street or
Mm.
whatever, but like this is just pure chaos, and it's obviously something that has just been like in his mind the
yeah.
entire time, and it's such a big part of him, of his day-to-day life and his personality, that it's like affecting him in such a way, which I thought was really interesting.
Okay, I know I'm gonna try and put like a logic here, but like his mother's so rich. Why does he live there?
You. So
Yeah, that could be a bit of a plot
so
hole.
I think there was
But I
like
mean,
there was
yeah, sorry, go.
some like hint at least when he was at her place looking at the wall and like all the products that she owns and the places and that, and I think that was like probably one of the buildings or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
just making a wild swing
So
there, but
yeah, I saw an analysis video where they were talking about like his mom has built this kind of empire on like she owns like a conglomerate of like they have a whole lot of different products and stuff that they sell. And apparently, like if you look at all the different appliances around his apartment, they all have that logo of that
Oh.
corporation kind of thing, like everything from the microwave to the whatever else. So there's that kind of thing of like she's all around
Yeah,
him all the
all
time,
the
this
time.
overbearing mother kind of thing, which I think is very much like a part of the theme of the entire
Mm,
thing. Like even if he wanted to leave his overbearing mother, he couldn't get away from
Mm.
mm,
her, which I think is really really interesting because it's like he's maybe actively trying to avoid that. I mean, you brought up the scene with the keys, right? And that was a really
sure.
like interesting scene for me personally because I was like, he has to phone his mom to say like he can't come visit her because he lost his keys. But then I was also watching this other video where they were talking about like, what if that didn't actually happen? What if he misplaced the keys or like just put it somewhere, but because he didn't want to feel bad about
Mm.
disappointing his mom, he had to come up with a story about how the keys just like got lost or disappeared. And there's this kind of conflicting thing in his mind where he's like, I feel guilty about what I'm doing, but I also feel like I don't want to see my mom because maybe she's too overbearing or
Mm,
maybe I just can't handle that pressure or whatever the case may be. So he's like conflicted in that phone call, which is a really cool scene. And I think Joaquin Phoenix plays it really well as well because you kind of get that sort
sure.
of thing of he wants to please his mom in certain instances, like when when she's quiet for a bit and
Mm.
there's like that guilt trip that happens
You.
when she's like really quiet and then she starts speaking and you can tell he's like, oh but please don't like
Mm,
don't hate
Mm.
me, but at the same time it's like there's the push and pull where it's like I don't want to see you, so maybe I'm going to
yeah.
fabricate this whole thing about losing my keys kind of thing. It's a really interesting thing because that's open to
Mm.
interpretation, right? Like you never really know what's real and
Yeah.
not, which I
Guys,
think is the
speaking of
genius of the movie.
the brow above the, the bathtub, man, sweating on
Yo, that
him.
scene was hectic.
What on earth? Listen, out of everything in the movie, and these crazy things we'll discuss later, including the
Yeah.
Tolly in the attic, but this, bruh, it was
I
above
don't
his
understand why he
bathtub.
was so
What on earth?
scared. Why was you so
What?
scared? Just come
I
down.
don't know.
Yeah. Why was he like? Why was he just there the entire time? Like, oh my word, so hectic.
Just come
I mean,
down. Like it's nothing.
Yeah.
guys, I'll buy a drink for anyone who can tell me what that bra was doing there and the purpose of him.
Yeah.
You know,
Because I have
at
no
one
idea.
point, at one point, I think it was when all the people came into his apartment, and while he was getting the water and stuff like that, and I was like, Bose really wants to live because at this point I'm like,
Mm.
I'm giving up. I'm sorry. And that's like the first half of the, I mean, the first like quarter of the movie. I'm already like, if I was him, I would have given up already. Like,
Yeah,
screw this. I don't want to live this badly.
it's so intense.
So which like anxiety or plot point resonated with you the most?
Sure. Um,
That's an interesting one.
that is an interesting one. Let me think about that quickly. I think maybe not the.
I mean,
Oh, sorry,
yeah,
then you can go
okay.
ahead. It's fine.
No, I was just gonna say like there's like I mean you get different types of like anxieties, right? But like I think social anxiety, for me, for a lot of it is also like something that's kind of a little bit subtle and under the surface, but like it's one where it's like he doesn't really know how to act around people and he's kind of had this sheltered kind of life. So it's one of those like I know social anxiety for example is caused by a lot of different things. It's like the history of being bullied, of having overprotective parents, public humiliations and stuff like that. It's like that can all to have a factor in this kind of social anxiousness. And I thought that was also prevalent there because he was meeting a lot of people throughout the journey of the film, right? And it was always like this little sort of thing of, how is he going to get along with these people and what kind of relationships and interactions is he going to have with these people? Which I thought was maybe not as obvious as some of the other anxiety inducing and anxiousness moments, but like I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, that sort of element to it.
Yeah, for me, I think obviously not to the degree of this, but just the anxiety around relationships and sex as well, like the idea in society that especially when you're younger and growing up, and I think a lot of people are told that it's like, even in the education system, if you have sex, like bad things are going to happen. And I think in the modern age that is changing. There's more like sex positivity and teaching people about that, especially younger people. But I think when I was growing up, at least, it was very much like super taboo. You mustn't think about that. You mustn't do that. Um, and then you end up kind of like exploring on your own when you get older. So yeah, I think that did resonate with me quite a bit as well in terms of the story.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. As I said, like for me, the most of it was stressful. The therapy one, probably most of all. But like, I
Yeah,
saw so much when he's running down that road. I saw so much of me
Yeah.
walking home from retreat station every day and mapping out my route to make sure that
yeah,
I don't like get any danger on the way, or knowing where, like
Mm.
having enough outs and that sort of thing. And even when he's like trying to get to the store with the water, and like leaving the telephone thing there, and it was just like telephone book. It's just like there was so much of that I was like, oh my god, this is me
mm,
like so much. Which, and it's like, I think like nobody wants, you don't want to be Beau. Like he's living this kind of sad sack life, and I think it's a great
yeah,
example of what happens when you give in to all your anxieties. But
mm,
Yeah.
it's like you don't want to be that, but you also, you do see yourself in that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what is the craziest aspect of the film for you?
Okay, listen, the Tolly monster in the attic for me is just
Is that canon? Is that are we
the
gonna call that
yeah,
fully
we're
monster?
keeping it local. For our international
Okay.
listeners,
Yeah, yeah.
the penis monster, the giant penis monster in the attic. Um, that is a representation of his father, I guess, or is his father according to his mother, because his mother's
Mm.
story of the world is canon, right? Because it's his POV,
Yeah.
and his mother controls his POV of the world. So
Mm.
yeah, I think for me that's when it just went completely off the rails. Like this giant penis monster with claws that kills this guy that runs in there.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? Like, I get the metaphor, but it was just like so insane for me. Like, that was
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
crazy.
I want to piggyback off what Nagel was saying about like the mom controlling his kind of like viewpoint of the world and stuff. Like for me, one of the craziest moments was when he had sex with his
Mm.
crush from the cruise, and then she died, and that was pretty hectic because he had this idea in his head that if he was gonna have sex with her, he
He
was
was
gonna
gonna die.
die because that's what happened to his father, right? According to his mom. And I thought about that as well in terms of like the the reason why she would tell her son that, and like for a part of it could be that like maybe she told him that because she didn't want him to like fall in love with someone. She wanted him to be part of her life the entire
Mm,
time. So like anything to dissuade him from having a romantic relationship with someone, from having sex. And I mean we can get into the whole Oedipus nature of that thing as well, but like there's yeah, there was something really interesting about that whole thing of like she was controlling every aspect of his life, even the fact that she wanted him to be so scared of intimacy, like right, to have this kind of thing where he almost escapes it on a daily basis. Like the
mm.
fact that he says he will wait for,
Yo,
I think her name was Elaine,
that was so
he's
tragic,
gonna
eh?
wait for her. Like that's crazy because that means that he has not had any romantic relationship with anyone for that long, and maybe in his mind he was justifying it as, oh, I'm waiting for the my crush from the cruise, but at the same time it was like that was his reasoning for not having a relationship, and therefore his mom was winning in that sense because he became dependent on her, or at least she was the only kind of figure that he could really love in his life. So it's like it's crazy manipulative, and like there's guilt happening there, but it's like I thought that was really interesting. And the scene itself where they have sex, which is so awkward. It's like I've
Yeah.
seen awkward film scenes in the past, but that was weird. And
And then
like
when she's
then
frozen
her
in
actually
place as
dying.
well, and they carry her away,
Yeah, like exactly in the
I was
mom's
like,
bed, and then she hits rigor
what?
mortis like immediately, like she's just like stuck, and I'm like, oh no, that was rough.
So weird.
I was just saying that like the penis monsters like section for me was like, I was like, you know what, I'm just giving up now. Like, whatever you say, I agree. Like, I'm not even going to try and work this, because I must say, before that, when they kept on showing like the whole trapdoor thing, I was like, there's something that's going to be revealed. Like, he has a secret twin. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's.
Yes, I thought that as well. That was one of my theories.
I was
as
like,
well.
you know, his father is dead, or you know, there's something there. And then it was this, and I was like kind of disappointed, and I was kind of just like, you know what? But then I was just like, how did that guy from the other people, the guy that was after him, how did he get so high up to be in the attic window?
Oh,
He was just
the soldier,
standing
the
there.
PTSD soldier.
Maybe it's on a
Wait.
hill.
Wait, so the logic is there's a 16-foot penis monster, but how did this guy get there?
Yeah, I love that.
I love
You were
it.
like, no, the penis monster is canon,
Yeah,
but
like-
But
this
how did
guy,
this
how
guy
did he
get here?
I was like, what is he? It just doesn't make sense. Like, can he fly? What is going on? but there was a point I was like, huh? Then I was like, is he really there? But then I was just like, you know what happens now happens. And
Exactly.
but yeah, for me that was also the point where I was like, what the, I was just so, I must, like, the whole thing with like when that guy at the play was like, I know your father, he's still alive. I was like, what was the point of that other than to like create doubt in him? Maybe. But I was like, you know, I was just like, I wanted to know more. And I'm just like, am I trying to create a mystery where there is no mystery?
Yes.
And like, you know, I suppose it's like, you know, we go to familiar tropes and familiar storylines that feels like, makes us feel comfortable. And like,
Safe, yeah.
what he's doing is just like showing us like, nope, none of these things matter. Like, you know, you don't fall into your familiar traps. You're gonna be like disappointed. You gotta like not expect anything.
That's such a great point, actually, because if you watch like his last films as well, you'd kind of expect like a pretty an ending that won't kind of go where you expect it to, or like no happy ending. Like I don't think any of these three features have had like a happy ending really. Debatable for Midsummer, but depending on how you view that. But yeah, I think part of getting you out of or sorry, like getting you into that anxiety is the lack of control that you have over the narrative as well. So it's like you feel like you can't actually control this narrative. You know, it's not going to go where you expect it to go. And I think that's part of the meta nature of the story, where it draws you even further into that anxiety because you're like, why is this 3 act not taking us on the hero's journey? You know, like why is it not resolving? You know, why is the third act not, you know, coming to a climax? Lol. But like, why is it not sorting itself out by the end? You know. So I think that's part of the anxiety that he's evoking in the audience as well. So yeah, I think it's very meta in that sense.
And the play within the play, where they do take us on an entire hero's journey.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was so lost at that point. I was just like, you know what? Like, I forgot we were watching a play at some point. I was just like, I was just like, this is what I'm on now. This is the path I'm going on. I did actually quite like that part because I thought it looked very nice.
Yes.
Yeah, aesthetically it was very, very cool.
Yeah.
But at the moment when I was watching it as well, I was like, why are we here? Like, this is such a detour to what we were watching.
Honestly,
I
was checking my messages at that time. I was like, okay, I'm kind of checked out here. Like, it looks cool.
Yeah, that was
I
a
saw this
moment.
section in the trailer. It looks cool. But there's a couple of messages I need to check quickly just to make sure there's no important emails. And then I'll clock back in later. For me, that was like the portion that they could have just cut out and got the 2.5 hour cut.
But what was the point of that? To just show us somebody, just show us how, like, what could happen or what he wished would happen?
Yeah.
But then it also ends
is strange,
bad. So I think it's just like he's so stuck in the cycle of his anxiety and the cycle of being trapped by his mother that he can't escape at all, no matter which mini arc he's going through within the journey, because the overall arc he doesn't escape, but then also in that arc, like he gets all the way to the end and he's with his sons and that, and then he tells them, I've never been with someone. And then they were like, well, then how are
Huh?
we here? And then that
Yeah,
whole thing is
exactly.
ruined. And it's like, mommy wins again. Like, yo, shame, bruh.
Yeah.
But like, I don't get that because like in the story they're like, you have sex, so you have children. So I'm
Yeah,
like, they answer that in the story. Like, why are we saying this again?
I don't know. Maybe it
um,
was a projection of what he felt like was his story, but then it couldn't be because of the fact that he hasn't been with anyone. I don't know.
maybe, yeah.
More questions than answers.
Yeah,
Correct.
definitely. Like, 100%. So I just have like another one more question about the film. Like, and this is me asking you guys what you think, because I don't understand. But I saw this review that said that like that Beau's mother could have controlled his whole life because she
Mm,
owned the building that he lived in. That she could have. I mean, she Elaine worked for her, and then the Roger guy that was surveilling him, they could have also been working for her. So what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting. Like I one of my favorite movies is The Truman Show, right? And I got like Truman Show-esque vibes when he was at that family, the doctors and the crazy teenager and the weird PTSD veteran guy. But anyway, so he's there, and then there's that moment when he like sees the TV and it's like fast
mm,
forwarding through what's currently happening,
yo,
and
such a
then
trip.
she passes him a letter. The mother passes him a letter that says like don't incriminate yourself, I think it was, or something to that effect. And I was like, what? Like that's crazy because that means like is everyone in on this kind of thing?
Yeah,
Which that was like a big thing for me. I was like, I don't know if it's him against everyone. I don't know if this is all in his mind. I don't know. But I thought, yeah, that was really, really weird. But at the same time, I was just like, I could latch onto that if that was the case, right? If it was one big like, oh, Truman Show kind of vibe. But yeah, no, that was what I thought basically was
yeah.
happening there at that moment.
So from my side, I think yes, but I think everything that happens, like that you see on screen, doesn't happen as you see it. Like obviously, it's his perception of how things are happening, but I think his mother did control like she did it as a whole ploy to make him feel like crap for whatever, for for not coming
Yeah.
through to her, for missing his flight. I don't know. Like
And
I
also
have to
just like
believe
being
that.
an overbearing mother, like is one of the that's one of those things where she's like she wanted to helicopter parent him
Yeah.
the entire time. That maybe that's something that I thought was happening, like where she was literally kind of watching him throughout the entire
Mm,
events of the film and previously. Like maybe it was one of those things where
yeah.
she was controlling, she was puppet mastering him, manipulating him, but obviously not to the point of just like her enjoyment. She maybe just wanted to um be as overprotective and kind of like she wanted him to rely on her more than anyone else. So I don't know. I think that his mother was definitely the type of person who could have controlled a lot of elements of the story. I don't know how many though. I don't know how much of it was just her controlling him and how much of it was him like completely exaggerating what was happening. Which I think is another thing. Like it's all perspective and
Yeah.
like kind of what you think is happening.
So, okay, final thoughts on the film. Favorite parts, worst parts. What are your final thoughts?
There's another part that I also thought, what the fuck, and I thought was like weird was when that girl drinks the paint.
Oh
Yo,
yeah.
what on earth was going on there?
That
There was another what the fuck moment for me.
was a whole that relationship and that kind of interaction with her was weird. Like people were saying like he's got like so much of it, of his anxiety was like on show, even like him kind of having this fear of a younger
Mm.
generation thing, because there's that scene when they're
Yeah.
driving around and they're
I was
like
like, what is the
convincing
point?
him to smoke weed and I was just like shame in this poor guy, but at the same time like what the
And
fuck
then
is
they tell him
happening,
it's
you know what
laced
I
to
mean?
something else, and then it's like, ah, it's just
Yeah.
nuts. Uh,
Yeah, but her just freaking off paint is, yo, that was
what on
crazy. I
earth?
was like, what is going on?
Um, but yeah, overall for me, I thought the film was a good entry into Ari Aster's filmography. He once again proves that he can take very simple ideas or emotions and really like bring you into those in a very visceral way that's like very uncomfortable and intense. Um, I think this is his least accessible film, just because it's not a straight up, you know, like Hereditary is a horror film. Um, Midsummer is kind of like a drama with horror elements, but not supernatural horror elements. And this one is kind of like a very surreal drama comedy, I would say. Way funnier than I expected it to be, and a good film, but a bit long. I would say if you have like some edibles or something and you want to watch it, like maybe you'll enjoy it. But yeah, I think it's just a bit too long. Um, I hope that because Ari Aster has like a director's cut of Midsummer, for example, that's pretty long as well, which we watched a couple months back. But I think he kind of needs someone to reel him in a bit, and just to work with someone that can, get him to present his ideas in a way that's kind of more um, accessible to audiences. And because if he continues on this path, then I think he's going to become very like his work's going to become more and more inaccessible. So I'd like to see him just rein it in a bit and still focus on his strengths, which is his ability to tap into emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to echo what Nagel says, like I think his filmography has been so great so far, and this is one, and that's going to be I think it's going to be known as maybe one of his more divisive films. Who knows what his films are going to look like going forward? But like, I think this is also going to be one that's going to be remembered for how divisive it is. I think, yeah, also very long, but the performances are really good. I think, and the comedic nature of it, I think, kind of sets it apart as well. Like it tackles a lot of real themes, but it's very funny, and as much of it's as what the fuck funny, it's just like it's kind of very universal humor as well. As much as it is inaccessible for his standards, I feel like there's certain like even there's a guy who's naked and he stabs people. Like that's fucking crazy. Like we didn't even mention that. That's how bad like it got to like
Yeah.
where there was so much fucked up shit happened. We've done like I don't know how long this podcast has been going now, but we haven't mentioned a naked guy
That
who
guy
stabs
stabs
people. That's
people
fucking
on the
crazy.
news.
On the news.
Isn't he like they say he's
But
like
yeah,
he's
I enjoyed it.
uncircumcised and like they describe
Yeah.
him and white like that was his description. Birthday boy, wasn't he birthday boy? Because he
Yeah, something
was
legal.
Yeah.
Like so crazy. You know what I was just thinking now, like all the stuff that we're talking about. If someone listens to this podcast without having watched the film, they're going to be like, "What
Oh yeah.
is
They'll be
in
like,
this
are they
film?"
making this movie up on the spot? Like, are they literally just creating this out of nothing? It's so fucking crazy.
rigor mortis and immediately. I was like, why is she so stiff? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
can't they just
she's stuck in that
hold her
position. And they just carry her out like it's nothing.
like she's a statue?
Ew.
Oh man.
But it must just make you wonder, like, what is that staff scene like?
Yeah.
If that's like nothing, then they must have seen some like pretty messed up stuff
Some
over
crazy
the
stuff,
years.
yeah. Also, you were speaking about the therapist, right? But like, he's so in the early like parts when he goes to therapy, the guy's so comforting in that, and then he becomes so sinister later on when he returns. Yo, but he's got the same demeanor, but he just like softly laughs, and it's like, yo, this is so sinister. I was just like, that is wild.
Yeah.
I was like
Yeah.
upset because I was like, obviously we all like this actor and like he's just so like
Yeah.
nice. I just don't want to think of him as being this like bad guy. It just made him. But Patti LuPone, I thought she was so great. Oh my gosh. I was obviously, she's obviously a theater actor and you see on TV sometimes, but like she was like how do I say, like such a powerhouse in this film. I thought
Yeah.
she was
Yeah,
definitely like,
definitely.
Joaquin was obviously great, but I mean, she was also a highlight for me.
Yeah. Supporting cast was really good, like as well. Like as much as I'm praising Joaquin Phoenix, like
Nathan
everyone
Lane.
else was also bringing. Oh, Nathan Lane was
Oh my
fantastic. Oh my
gosh.
word! I was so when I saw him come on screen because I didn't know he was in the
Uh,
film. I was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, there's Nathan Lane." Oh, it's
And
so good.
what was
I,
going on there? What was? I feel like that's just the theme here. That's
Yeah,
just the
that's
theme.
the bumper
Every
sticker for this
scene,
whole film.
every sequence.
You can
What
literally
was going on there?
and with the
every 15
child,
minutes, like, what was going
the
on here?
child that died in action. Like, I
Oh
hated that. I wanted to
man.
laugh every time the child.
So
Yeah,
crazy.
gosh, this film. There was something else I wanted to say now. Still about this. I don't know, but yeah, it was a lot.
It
um,
was.
and thank you guys for helping me sort of like dissect it.
As
We
much as we could,
tried.
yeah.
We tried. I think
Yeah.
I think it'll take a few more years before anyone knows anything close
Yeah.
to what he meant by this film, but we tried.
But you know what I liked about it was that, the whole point, not the point, but I mean, like, the school of thought that cinema is supposed to start conversation and,
Yes.
like, invoke feeling in you and bring up
Yeah.
things. I thought that this film does it so well without
Yes.
even, like, yes, they spell it out, but they also don't spell it out. Like, the
Mm.
subtext and the whatever. It's just, everything was just, I think it was done well. I mean, obviously, there's parts that I didn't like, and there's parts I didn't get, and but there's like I didn't walk out there thinking it was a waste. Like there was
Yeah.
something you could take from it. So I think that's what I liked.
Yeah, I think a lesser director would have kind of spelled everything out to you by the end, where it would have been like it would have taken you through the back rooms and show the mother's set up how she controls everything in the world around her, and the people and her staff. Like they would have showed you behind the scenes how everything fits together. But I think Ari Aster just leaving a lot up to interpretation. I love that because, I mean, Dean and I, we write as well. And often when we do get some feedback, it's always like, is your audience actually going to pick up on this and that? And it's like, no, actually, audiences are smart and they can deduce things. And even when they can't deduce things fully, as long as the themes are strong, it creates conversations, it creates debates. And I think that's important because cinema is like a form of art and literature where it's supposed to be engaging. You're supposed to converse and discuss and debate what's going on in it. So I like that. I can appreciate it for that.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me to discuss this. Before we go, what do you have coming up? Like, what do you guys have any films in the pipeline you want to tell us about?
Yeah, okay, I'll go. Yeah, so at the moment we've got a couple of projects that we're working on. One is an animated film set in the same universe as our current short film, Protege, which is kind of a thriller dealing with issues of gender-based violence. So the other film that we have is called Plunder, and that's more animated, so it's a different kind of medium for us, but it takes place in the same universe, which is really cool. And then yeah, we're doing a big festival run for Protege at the moment. So hopefully we'll be able to do that, get into some really cool festivals, and just writing a bunch of scripts, and we're working on a.
I know. I think Dean might have got cut out there by load shedding. Um, I'll continue. We are working on a um, So, Protege is our short film. It's a thriller about a group of women who form a vigilante group that goes after people accused of gender-based violence. And this short film is basically a conversation around the justice system and um, how unfair it is, and kind of like how justice fails people on a daily basis. So it's not so much about the specifics happening in there, but it's about the conversation around justice and the questions that we have about how justice operates in society, in modern society. So Plunder's the other film that we have that also takes place in the same universe, and then we are busy. It's early days, but we are busy adapting our short film me and I into a feature at the moment. So can't talk much about that yet, but that is in the works. And we've also just joined a writer's room for a sitcom series that's in development at the moment. So yeah, we've got some things in the pipeline that we're really excited about. So that's what we've got going on.
Wow, that's a lot. Wow. um,
Yeah.
but thank you guys again so much for joining us on the podcast. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for
Karen.
having us. We always love talking to you about film and culture.
Yeah.
And things.
Back to Fam 101, whatever, 1000.
Yeah.
1001.
Yeah, fam. Oh my word. That's a throwback.
That's all from me this week. If you would like to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/crushingonpod, where you can get some bonus content in exchange for a monthly financial subscription. To catch us on social media, you can find me at Karen Welby on Instagram and at Karen Welby's with an S on Twitter. The podcast can be found at Crushing on Pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. You can find more information about this and all our other episodes at our website, crushingonpodcasts.com, and send any feedback to mail@crushingonpodcasts.com. The show is produced by me, Karen, Rebecca Barches, and Leanne Phillipson. Our logo was designed by Nathifa Maroof. If you like the show, tell everyone that you can, any way that you can. Keep up to date with all our episodes by subscribing to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please rate and review the episodes on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as it helps others find the show. We'll be back soon with another in-depth conversation. See you then.